We did it! We made it! The final race of the year. No one believed us. No one believed we could do it. Give yourselves a pat on the back. Go on. You showed them. You showed them. You did it. Good job. I'm proud of you. Proud of you. And yes, the kids gave me a restyle last night. I am Redneck Ben. Welcome to Story of the Race here on Pinkbike. First of all, I'd like to kick things off with a little bit of breaking news. There was an unfortunate accident at the after party last night when a pedestrian bridge actually collapsed with people queuing to get into the after party. I don't know if it was overloaded or if there was an abnormal failure, but there were several injuries and lots of people got sent to hospital for treatment. We haven't heard how serious the injuries are yet, but we hope they aren't too serious and everyone fully recovers. In more traditional news, there was a rather exciting downhill mountain bike race in the dry on Friday. The juniors get to show what they are made of the day before the elites, and they got the best of the weather. In the junior female category, Amy Kenyon was the first to set a super quick time, being the first to go under 5 minutes. Sasha Ernest quickly dethroned Amy with a return to form after her disappointing race last week. Sasha looked super controlled and quick on her way to second place on the day. Everyone was waiting to see if world champ Eris would have an answer to Sasha, but she washed out in the dust after the Stevie Smith drop, ending her chances. Her wins earlier in the year still helped her to secure third place in the overall. Valentina Roas Sanchez really established herself as the most consistent racer this year by never finishing outside the top 4 on her way to winning this race and the overall. Lisa Bouladou was the surprise of the race, showing some scarily fast pace. Unfortunately, she had a crash up top, losing her 10 seconds, but she gained time from there to the bottom, showing that she could have won by about 7 seconds, which is super promising for her move into elite next year. In the junior male category, Pinkbike Racing's Wyatt Harrington kicked things off with a heater of a run that would hold for quite a while as following riders struggled to get to grips with the physical track. Ethan Donahoe had a violent crash when he pushed his front wheel the wrong side of a tree in the upper woods. Vincent Juvenal disintegrated his rear wheel on the Stevie Smith drop. He was not the first and will not be the last to do so. There's a specific speed that causes this kind of failure on this drop. If you go slow, you ride down the face of the rock, then pull up onto the wood ramp. As you go faster, it becomes harder and harder to get the wheels onto the face of the rock. If you go super fast and pull, you can gap all the way down to the wood. If you go that in-between speed and don't pull, you miss the rock face and land in between the rock face and the wood on the 90-degree square edge of the wood, which is not compatible with maintaining wheel structural integrity. Dylan Marino can attest to this, as he did the exact same thing as Vincent, and we got to see them both dragging their poor bikes off the hill. Jake Polito negotiated the drop safely, but nearly tucked the front in that dusty corner into a great save. Oscar Griffiths had a scary one. His arms caved slightly on the entrance to a super fast G-out turn, which was enough to put him offline and send him into a massive tumble. Luckily, he looked to be all good afterwards. Canadian loose unit Brock Hawes laid down a wild run and snapped his chain a few meters before the line to go into the lead. He wasn't there for long though, as European champ Nathan Ponvian laid down an absolute heater. He's shown unreal pace all year but hasn't quite strung together the run we knew he could till this race. To take that much time out of the other top riders was a shock to everyone and the commentators. But the signs were there from earlier on in the season. His time would prove to be unsurmountable and gave him his first World Cup win in his last Junior World Cup race. John Mosel had an eventful run with missed course marker up top and then a colossal ejection after the wild Stevie Smith drop. Ryan Griffith also suffered on his run as he slipped, caved and flipped the bars in the rooty upper woods. Kimi Viardo rode an aggressive run into third position for his best result of the year. Leo Abella looked to be on for another podium, but unfortunately had a rear tire blowout in a weird place, ending his chances. Milan Falque, another French junior and teammate of the winner Nathan Pompillon, has really progressed through this season. Starting the year in 18th, working his way into the top 10 and then podiuming at the last 2 rounds. His second place this weekend shows the first year junior will be one to watch next year. Pinkbike Racing was super happy to help out this young French team, register them under PBR and share pit space with them all year. Good job, Goodman Racing. We missed Ryan Pinkerton and Bodie Kuhn at this last round due to injuries, but Ryan still managed to secure the overall and Bodie secured 3rd, with Nathan jumping from 6th into 2nd overall with his win. The semi-finals for the elites kicked off the day after the juniors, and the weather really took a classic Mont Saint Anne turn for the wetter. The clouds started dumping right as the first women's semi-final rider lined up in the start gate. Everyone knew it was coming, but knowing it's going to be wet and being able to ride a freshly wetted track on a race run are 2 different things. The semis were eventful. Gloria Scarzi was the first and absolutely not the last person to crash in that famous rock garden. Anna Newkirk also suffered in the same section as Gloria. Those rocks are just so slippy. It's really hard to describe how difficult it is to ride through that section in the wet, even when you're fresh, let alone absolutely hanging from 3 minutes of French-Canadian brutality. Gracie Hemstreet was one of many to suffer from a flat tyre in semi-finals. Valley Hole also got one on her way to winning the semis, which just shows that anyone can have a mechanical. In the elite men, Tyler Irvin, Jacob Dixon, Connor Fearon, Jackson Connolly, Oshino Callaghan, Thomas Stack, and probably more, all flatted to varying amounts of disaster. Some lost loads of time and some flatted near the bottom and ran inserts, and it allowed them to finish and still get into final. Simon Chapelet got caught out by the wet conditions in the same section that ended Bodie Kuhn's season. He got a little too inside on a corner, washed the front, and smashed his leg into a rock. He'll be limping for a few days after that one. Canadian Jacob Jewett unfortunately had a big crash on his semi-final run, but it did set up one of the most comedy moments of the year. Ollie Davis passed Jacob after his crash, but unfortunately Ollie also crashed in a tight switchback. And it turns out Jacob had decided to chase him down and he ploughed straight into the back of Ollie. Ollie was a bit confused, thinking someone had caught him up, and Jacob was panicking that he might be ruining Ollie's run, and they fumbled about to get going again while the marshal just pointlessly waved a red flag over the entire situation. It was brilliant. Kolb really doesn't like that tree in the upper woods and gave it a solid right hook. But its mate, the next tree, stopped Kolb and told him to get a grip. Jackson Goldstone really laid down the law in semi-finals by taking the win by over 5 seconds. You could see he really wanted to celebrate, but sort of realised there was not really any point because there was no points on the line and really didn't mean anything, so he kept it chill.
Did he unleash the beast too early?
Some of the other top racers like Bruni, Bernard all chilled into the finish with no pedalling. But it wasn't 5 seconds worth of pedaling. In the final, things looked to get even worse in that slippy rock garden. The rain chilled out a bit and I feel like the rocks hit peak grease factor during the elite women. The rocks were wet and then the dirt from the open section got dragged across the wet rocks, creating this super slick paste that just made them more lethal than when it was actually raining. Phoebe Gale crashed in there, as did teammate Tanny Seagrave, who interestingly didn't get DQ'd for going around some poles. I mean, it's not a big deal because she kind of stopped, but it was just interesting to note. Jenna Hastings crashed in there as well while on a good run. Millie Yonset too. It was starting to look like the rock garden was kind of unrideable. Monica Rasnick was the first of the girls to get through clean. Her run was uneventful in the best possible way. There were no big dramas on her way to 4th position and a solid end to a really consistent season with 3 podiums and 4th in the overall. Things got really exciting when last weekend's winner, Marion Cabarrou, lined up and started smashing split times. She made mistakes but just kept things rolling. Choosing the safer wide line in the rock garden got her through without any major dramas, and it was looking like she would put down an unbeatable time. Then in the lower rocks, she just got a tiny bit offline, clipped a pedal on a rock, and spat her bike sideways and sent her tumbling into the rocks. She looked to be okay, but she was on the same, second as eventual winner at Split 3 and will no doubt be gutted. Veronica Widman looked to be really pushing things more than we've seen from her in a while. She absolutely sent it off the fly-off in the open and was clearly pushing. This clean run helped her to score her best result of the year in 3rd position. Harriet Harnden continued to surprise with her multidisciplinary skills and no doubt drew from her massive skill set to execute a clean run to finish 5th. Nina Hoffman had the most badass finish of a race run this year, the worthy successor to Nico Malali's wheel explosion from last season. Nina was on an excellent run but made a huge mistake in the rocks and lost a lot of time. Saving this crash and getting back up to speed drained her energy and she was so fatigued she could barely pull up for the last jump. She hit the upslope of the landing with a severe force, immediately blowing out the tyre in an explosion of sealant. Then Nina just steered that sinking ship over the line to claim 2nd place on the day and 2nd in the overall. It was a wild moment. Then it was Valley's turn. The rider who had struggled for many years with the public's perception of her as someone who is the fastest but crashes when it counts, on the sketchiest track of the year where everyone is crashing. Well, she absolutely destroyed it. Extremely composed run with very few mistakes that we could see. She took the win by a colossal 13 seconds as well as the overall and cemented herself as the best female downhill rider on the planet in 2023. Let's go Valley Hall. In the Elite Men final, we got a very familiar start with Dylan Levesque slipping and going off the track in that same rock garden. I hope this is becoming clear how proper hard it is to ride this section. It is no joke. Dante Silva also went skeetering off track further up the hill and he was so keen to try and get back up the hill that he jumped off before he'd fully stopped sliding and he kind of kept sliding out of shot with his bike. Remy Myers-Smith slipped in the Nightmare Rock Garden and got himself wedged kind of behind a tree and struggled to get going. Phil Atwill was the first rider to not have a huge mistake or puncture in his run. That, combined with the fact that it was an excellent run, super controlled and precise, saw him finish in a season's best 14th. Ronan Dunn has been talking and walking a big game this season, and he had stated he was going to podium at this race. Fair play to the lad, he was absolutely going for it with the 2nd fastest first split. Unfortunately, he overcooked it a little bit into a big compression turn, caved into the bike before being spat out the front door. Matt Walker's front wheel got pinged around so much in that rock garden it looked like it was teleporting from one position to the other. He did well to wrestle it back underneath him and not hit the deck. Oisin O'Callaghan backed up his win last week with another great result. The Irishman is clearly finding his feet and enjoying the confidence that's coming with it. Tuhoto Ariki Penny was a tiny bit too inside in the rock garden and put his wheel into a big sharp edge which we couldn't see because the rock garden camera guy kept filming so zoomed in. Just zoom out, dude. After being told off for his disagreement with the tree in semis, Cole decided to just give the tree just a quick fist bump as he went past in his race run. The Forest accepted his apology and allowed him to finish in 8th, which secured him 5th place in the overall. Lucas Shaw needs a shout out for being the only person to pull the old school rock gap in the woods. He sketched his way out of it, but mad respect all the same. Loris Vergier won the Clean Scrub Award on that final drop. That was super tight, even if his run wasn't what he was after. Finishing in 10th on the day secured him 3rd in the overall. Gaetan Vige, what the heck? I can forgive you if you are wondering who this guy is rocking the 89 plate. He's raced World Cups for a while on a few big teams and has had some great results in the past, but not like this. Gaetan has struggled to qualify all year and for some reason, something just clicked this week. He was absolutely on it and his run was exceptional. He went fully inside in that rock garden that everyone was struggling with. It shouldn't have been possible and he just made it look smooth. He was actually 3rd at the last split, but then he lost some time in the final sector to finish in 5th on the podium. If this isn't an example for the wild variability of downhill and an argument for keeping the wild cards in racing, then I don't know what is. Good lad, Gaetan. Bernard Kerr has never won a World Cup, yet he can never actually be counted out for taking the big win. He had a bloody good crack at it this week and scored his best result of the year in 4th. The chat is he'll be back next year to have another go. Dakota Norton sure does delight the eyes with some of his manoeuvres. His little gap to berm up top was really nice, but he crashed out of sight of camera, judging by the mud on his knee and the way he dribbled into view. By comparing similar riders and the time to come into view, Dakota lost about 4 seconds in there, which would have put him into second place. It's absolutely mad that he still finished 6th with a crash. Loic Bruni performed the sketchiest and most impressive rip and roll pull at the end of that fast straight. I thought for a second he was going down, but I should have known better, and he held it. 3rd place for Bruni, and the overall title sealed for the world champion. What a year for Bruno. Ethan Craik has been threatening to get on the podium all year. He's been close on many occasions and it was only a matter of time. His 2nd place in semis was a firm statement and his race run was screamed from the rooftops. There were a few very obvious mistakes in his run, so it was far from perfect, but he just kept it rolling and firmly stood on a World Cup podium for the first time in 2nd place. Finn Isles was a lot of people's hot pick for this race given his form this season and his win here last year. It could have been so dreamy for him to take the win this week and make it a different winner at every round, and he looked to be on pace to do so on his finals run. He was fastest at the first split and not hanging about down the rest. That infamous rock garden which caught out so many ended up catching out the crowd favourite as well. Gutted for the lad. So it was up to the other Canadian to deliver for the home fans, and it's a big ask. It's his rookie season, a year of health issues, a lot on his shoulders. Jackson Goldston, he set out with ferocity and confidence. He pushed the limits way further than others seemed to be prepared to, and he made it stick. He pulled time on sections that seemed unnatural. He was so precise. He put his tyres exactly where they needed to be to grip, and he rounded off one of the greatest rookie seasons we have ever seen with the win at his home World Cup and 2nd in the overall. I mean, take a bow, man. That was seriously impressive. How about Pinkbike racing? Well, if you've been keeping track, Thibaut unfortunately broke his shoulder last week in snowshoe and has been in full team organiser mode despite the pain. Absolute hero. I just missed qualifying in snowshoe last week and then got ill this week with a bug and didn't have the strength to even dribble down the track, let alone qualify. Disappointing way to end the season, but that's the way it goes sometimes. The kids had a much better go of things, with Amy continuing her return to form at the end of the year. 7th in snowshoe and 4th here in Mont St. Anne, which had her feeling really happy and excited for next year. Wyatt finally shook the qualifying monkey off his back and got to race a World Cup. He laid down a stormer of a run to finish 8th in the world, and we are super proud of him. And that is it for myself and Pinkbike here at the World Cups. It's been a heck of a year and I hope you've enjoyed. You absolutely should keep your eyes peeled for the Pinkbike Racing series, which will be out later in the year. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and I'll see you there. Tears and all.